All right, Deuteronomy chapter 4. Well, this is a long chapter with a lot of things being talked about. It is the end of the historical narrative by Moses and the beginning of his discourse on how they need to live once they're in the land. In verses 3 and 4, Moses says to them, "You saw all that happened at Baal Peor." Well, he's talking about an incident that is described in Numbers 25. The Israelites are camped in a place called Shittim, and the Moabite women who are nearby come by and invite the men to come over for food and sex as part of their worship to their gods. Well, the men go. And when they get back, Moses tells the judges to kill every man that yoked himself to a Moabite woman. Well, somewhere along the way, a guy named Zimri parades his new Moabite wife in front of Moses and the whole congregation. And in Josephus, his book, The Antiquity of the Jews, he gives a speech that was made by Zimri at this time. And in it, he basically says to Moses, "How dare you impose your laws on the rest of us as you see fit? You have no right to deprive free men of the sweetness of life. Free men have no lord over them. You are treating us worse than slaves. I consulted with many people and listened to their collective wisdom when I sacrificed to Baal. And yes, I married a strange woman." Well, Aaron's grandson, a guy named Phineas, he runs a spear through the two of them, the man and wife, when they're together. Moses said in verse 3, "Your eyes have seen what the Lord did at Baal Peor." Well, that means that was this group of people. This was a recent event. This wasn't 40 years earlier. This is the group of people that's about to go into the promised land. Then Moses said to them in verse 8 that they will set themselves apart from the other nations. He says, "What great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this law that I set before you today?" Well, having statutes and rules wasn't all that new a thing. Hammurabi was a Babylonian king 350 years earlier, and he codified the way his society was to behave. What made his laws different? Hammurabi's laws dealt with things at a human level. The statutes of the Israelites deal with their relationship with God and with each other. In verses 9 through 14, Moses tells the people, "Don't forget what you saw at Mount Horeb when the Ten Commandments were given." Well, what happened at Mount Horeb? Well, they saw clouds and they saw lightning and they heard a voice, but they saw no form. And as a result, in verses 15 to 31, he tells them that they are not to make images or statues or set up poles or anything like that to represent God. And they are especially not to worship anything like that. In verses 32 to 40, Moses asks them, "Tell me what any of these other gods have done. Have they rescued the people out of Egypt? Have they made covenants and kept them? Have they done any signs and wonders?" And the resounding answer from the people has to be no. Finally, in verses 41 to 43, Moses does what we will see multiple times in Deuteronomy. He radically changes topic, and he starts talking about cities of refuge. Well, these are places that men could flee if they inadvertently killed another man. Normally, someone called the kinsman redeemer would be required to redeem the family of the lost man by killing the other man. Well, these cities of refuge allowed for a safe haven for the killer until his guilt could be determined by judges that would take, say, a less passionate approach to things. All right, well, what does all this mean to us today? I think there's a number of ways that this chapter can be dealt with at an application level. And I'm going to come down on the side of grace and mercy. If you look at the events in this chapter, the people, well, at least the men, really blew it with the Moabite women. And God could have said, "I've had it, I'm done with all of you," but he didn't. And there were some consequences to their actions, to be sure. A number of men in the camp died as a result of it. But God was gracious with the nation, allowing them to continue on into the promised land. And we're going to see God's grace throughout this book of the Bible. And that same grace is available to us today if we're willing to take it. In the New Testament book of Ephesians, Paul writes, "For by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that anyone can boast." It is a gift of God, and all you have to do is accept it. Thanks for taking the time to watch. As always, I pray that you got something out of this and that God has spoken to you during these few minutes of time that we spent together. If you like what you saw, give us the old thumbs up. More importantly, I would encourage you to click the subscribe here box, subscribe to the channel, and tell someone who needs to hear it about the channel. This is out there for people to use. Thanks a lot.